Basically, I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about who and what we are, what we've been doing, what we're going to be doing, and I'm going to ask you for your help. So, first off, who we are. Basically, we were formed in 2009 in July by Whitney Taylor, one of the head people on the Decriminalize campaign, and also Matt Allen, and they formed as a social group. We're just designed to do social advocacy for a variety of different things. MPAA is a project and one part of what we're doing. Basically what it is 99% volunteer, grassroots, patients, family members of patients, doctors, organizers. And this is all that we do is we go and we talk to the legislature. We work on medical cannabis here in state. And what I do every day is I go and visit with patients. I take them to and from the places that they need to go to, sometimes just to the grocery store, sometimes it's to talk to their representative or their senator. And this is the key part of the work that we do, is not only the outreach to patients and just saying, hi, I'm a patient, and I may not have exactly what you have, but you're not alone. You're not the only person in the world with, ALS. You're not the only person in the world with, cancer. You're not the only other person in the world with, who's suffering from this, who actually finds a lot of relief from cannabis. So being that we're a completely grassroots group, we really do rely on donations of time, of labor, of phone calling, of whatever. So if there's anything that you guys can do to help, we really would appreciate that. What we're working on, we're literally going door to door in the House and Senate, talking to our representatives, taking people and letting them share their stories. So if you can help in any way, shape, or form, please do that. And please take a look at our website. We've got a lot of important information on it, the Facebook as well. And then last but not least, register to vote. Get out there. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. The only way this thing is going to get done is hand to hand, person to person. I'm a person. I'm in pain. I use cannabis for my own suffering, and I really need you to help me so that I don't have to worry about the door getting kicked in or my dog's getting shot by a SWAT team. And that's not something. It's something that sounds very mediapathic, but it's also something that actually happens in real life around this country every single day. In this state, people are not having their medicine because they're afraid they're going to end up in jail where they'll just die, and that's criminal. The last thing I'm going to talk about is people listen when they hear from their neighbors and they hear from their friends and their family. So even if it's hard, even if it's not something that necessarily you think they're going to be responsive to, I really think that it's important for you to talk to people about medical cannabis and how it has changed people's lives. It's made people's lives better. And even when it's hard, this is the part that is that right now, if we do the hard work now, it'll be so much easier later. And by that, I would like to draw an analogy to about the early 80s. There was a time in this country, not all that long ago, where everybody knew that tomorrow we're going to have legalization. Everybody's going to be able to grow their own. Everybody's going to be able to do whatever that they want to do with that, with cannabis. And we didn't follow through on some things that could have been followed through on a national level, and as a result, we had Ronald Reagan elected president, and the DEA's budget went in a 10-time increase from what it was when Nixon started it. Then we had the wonderful war on drugs, which we're still suffering the effects of now. So even though it seems like the momentum is on our side, even though it seems like 81% of the people in Massachusetts, support medical cannabis, even though 50% of the people in this whole country, from a Gallup poll, not taken particularly that long ago, maybe finished and published last week, 50%, that's only half. We need 55%, we need 62%. We need, people to be vocal, to be advocates, to talk to politicians. We need to elect politicians who follow what we believe, not just one part of our agenda, but the entire agenda. And this is our time now. You don't want to look back at this 20 years from now and say, gosh, if only I'd written that letter, if only I'd talked to that representative or that senator. This is our time. This is the time that we can make the last yard to get to the touchdown.
Number one, drug supply should decrease. Well, the easiest way we have to measure how many drugs are being supplied to this country is what the seizures of those drugs are like. When I started kicking doors and seizing drugs with or without a warrant in 1970, we didn't care much about warrants back then, and we don't care too much about them now. The largest drug seizures at the beginning of that war were measured in pounds. And if you get very many seizures of a whole pound of hard drugs, you got promoted. What do we measure them in today? Tons. 10 tons of heroin, one seizure in the United States. 20 tons of cocaine, one seizure in the United States. 186 tons of marijuana, one seizure in the United States. Well, now you would think that when we're seizing all those drugs, it would make a difference on the street, but it hasn't. It hasn't made any difference whatsoever. You would think the drug purity would have to decrease, say in heroin, because there wouldn't be enough heroin to go around. But actually, drug purity has increased. When I started buying heroin on the streets in 1970, street level heroin was coming in at 1 1/2% pure. All the rest was cutting agent. So when you bought this little package of powder, only 1.5% of that was actually heroin. Today, according to DEA, street level heroin is coming in at 60% pure. Folks, that's a problem 40 times greater than it was at the beginning of the war. Drug prices. Number 3, drug prices should increase, right? Again, according to DEA, the wholesale price for cocaine since the beginning of the war has dropped 60%. The wholesale price for heroin is down 70% since the beginning of the war. Number 4, drug use should decrease. DEA estimated that at the beginning of this war, we had about 4 million people in this country above the age of 12 who had used an illegal drug. Now, I went back and I factored that into the population, that possible population back then. That was 2% of that population. Today, DEA tells us we have 112 million people in this country above the age of 12 that used an illegal drug. Folks, that is 46% of this population. A problem 23 times greater than it was at the beginning of the war. Let's talk about overdose deaths. They should decrease. And if there's any way you're going to judge the efficacy of a policy, it seems to me it should be, are we saving lives? From the beginning of the war until about 1979, we were experiencing 28 heroin overdose deaths per 100,000 heroin users. Today, we experience 141 of those deaths. 5-fold increase. Something's wrong here. We're going the wrong direction, folks. Number 6, drug prohibition murders should decrease. And you notice I say drug prohibition murders. I don't say drug murders. They're not drug murders. They're not murders that happened because someone got high and went out and killed someone. They're murders that happen because the people who control the market of the illegal drugs make so much money that it's worth killing each other to control that market. It's worth killing us cops charged with fighting this useless war to control that market. It's worth it to them to kill children caught in crossfire and drive-by shootings in order to kill that market. So these are not drug murders, they're drug prohibition murders. You know, when we had alcohol prohibition almost 100 years ago, 1920 to 1933, and we had the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and back then we called the massacre 7 people got killed. The people who were sent there to commit those murders, who worked for Al Capone, were not high on alcohol when they killed those people. This was not a drug murder. This was a drug prohibition murder. And the people down in Mexico that are killing thousands of people today, and And when they talk about massacres, it's really massacres. 70, 80 people killed, lined up and shot down. Those people are not high on drugs. This is just the way you conduct business under laws of prohibition. In Mexico, new president down there, Felipe Calderon, took over at the beginning of 2007. And thanks to the urging of the US government, he declared his own personal war on drugs. And as a result, in the next 4 years, 36,510 people died as a result of prohibition murders. And folks, that's bad enough, but when you start breaking this down by year and look at it, the first year that he declared that war, 2007, 4,000 murders. The second year, 6,000 murders. The third year, 9,000 murders. And the fourth year, 15,273 murders. What's it going to be this year? 30,000? 40,000?